They came and went, but they shouldn't have. These 90s films had the stars, the stories, and something special, yet somehow no one watched. Here are 10 forgotten 90s gems you need to see. The kind of movies that didn't get their moment, but still hit hard decades later. Jodie Foster plays Anne Benton, an artist who witnesses a mob hit and suddenly finds herself running for her life. She goes off the grid, but she's not fast enough. Enter Dennis Hopper, a hired assassin sent to track her down. But instead of pulling the trigger, something strange happens. He kidnaps her, then falls in love with her. That's the kind of movie Catchfire is. A romantic thriller, where the romance starts with abduction. The plot twists itself into something you don't quite expect. It's not sleek or polished. It's jagged, obsessive, even disorienting at times. But underneath it all, there's this pulsing core of paranoia and longing. And then there's the cut. The studio hacked the original version to pieces. Hopper was so furious, he took his name off the project. That's why the theatrical version is credited to Alan Smithee, Hollywood's signature for a disowned film. It had a $10 million budget. It made less than $300,000. People barely noticed it. And yet, if you watch the director's cut, retitled Backtrack, something unexpected emerges. The film becomes surreal, hypnotic, more focused on the why than the how. It's messy, flawed, but fascinating. This wasn't designed to be a cult film, but that's what it's become. Because when a story this strange falls through the cracks, the few who find it tend to remember it forever. Set near the end of World War II, A Midnight Clear follows a group of young American soldiers stationed in an abandoned French chateau when they encounter a small group of German soldiers who don't want to fight. They want to surrender, peacefully. But nothing in war is ever that simple. This is not a loud, explosive war film. It's quiet, introspective. It strips away the uniforms and asks, what if the people on both sides didn't want to kill each other? What if they just wanted to go home? Ethan Hawke leads a cast of fresh-faced soldiers dealing with fear, confusion, and moral conflict. There's no clear villain here. The enemy is war itself. With a modest $5 million budget and only $1.5 million at the box office, A Midnight Clear came and went with barely a whisper. Too somber for mainstream war audiences. Too emotional for the action crowd. But for those who've seen it, it lingers. It's one of the most human war films ever made. And one of the most overlooked. This is a film where the most intense battles happen off the battlefield, and the question it leaves you with, what do we really lose when we call it victory? After the sudden death of her husband, Pearl Berman, played by Shirley MacLaine, is just trying to survive the grief and her overbearing, very opinionated Jewish family. But everything shifts when Joe Meledandri shows up. He's Italian, he's charming, and he has a secret. He fell in love with Pearl the moment he saw her, 23 years ago. Used People isn't about grand gestures or dramatic twists. It's about second chances, the ones you almost forget you deserve. The film is set in 1969 Queens, but it's really about the scars we carry from decades earlier. War, loss, identity, regret. As Joe and Pearl reconnect, the film unpacks an entire family's buried trauma, including the quiet weight carried by Kathy Bates and Marcia Gay Harden in pivotal supporting roles. It's funny. It's heartbreaking. It's oddly beautiful. So what happened? Despite a cast stacked with Oscar winners and a heartfelt script, Used People only earned $6 million on a $20 million budget. No major awards push, no real marketing, got lost in the noise. Critics were divided. Some wanted something broader, flashier. But Used People was never that. It was intimate, honest, and maybe that's why it slipped through the cracks. But for those who've seen it, the film feels like a memory you didn't know you had. A reminder that even in grief, love can still walk through the door. A child is killed in a crossfire. A cop and a mobster die in the street. And suddenly, New York's most powerful man is under a microscope. In City Hall, Al Pacino plays Mayor John Pappas, a charismatic leader caught in a web of backroom deals, political favors, and moral compromise. By his side is Kevin Calhoun, his deputy, played by John Cusack, young, idealistic, and determined to find out what really happened. What starts as a tragic accident turns into a deep dive into how power actually works, how deals are made, how loyalty is twisted. This isn't a thriller in the traditional sense. There are no shootouts or car chases. The tension here is in the truth, and how far men will go to avoid it. With a $40 million budget, an A-list cast, and a script co-written by Bo Goldman and Paul Schrader, this should have been a prestige hit. Instead, it barely made $20 million. Why? Maybe it was too serious, too dialogue-driven. Released in a time when audiences were chasing spectacle, not speeches. But Pacino's final monologue? It's one of the best of his career. Raw, vulnerable, unforgettable. City Hall didn't explode at the box office, but it quietly exposed something more dangerous than any villain. The rot that grows when power forgets who it's supposed to serve, and for that, it deserves a second life. Renata Bella is smart, passionate, and stuck. After a failed relationship and a life that feels like it's going nowhere, she meets Sam Sharp, a wealthy, loud, over-the-top salesman who falls for her instantly. He's confident, he's generous, and he's way too much for her tight-knit traditional family. But Renata doesn't care. She marries him anyway. That's when the trouble really starts. Once Around isn't a typical romantic drama. It's a story about clashing worlds. Love that's messy, intrusive, unfiltered. Richard Dreyfuss plays Sam with so much energy, it's almost unbearable. And that's the point. He's the kind of man who gives everything, too fast, too loud, too soon. And Holly Hunter's Renata? She's caught in the storm, trying to balance the man she loves and the family she can't escape. With a $17 million budget, strong reviews, and a powerhouse cast including Danny Aiello and Gina Rowlands, it should have landed. But it didn't. It made just over $15 million and quickly faded. Maybe the tone was too uncomfortable, too grounded. Maybe audiences didn't know what to do with a love story that felt this raw, this human. But buried inside the chaos is a deeper question. What does it really take to let someone into your life? All the way in. And what happens when love stops feeling like a fairy tale and starts feeling real? Once Around isn't easy, but that's what makes it unforgettable. Frank White is out of prison, and he wants his city back. But not the way you think. In King of New York, Christopher Walken plays a crime lord with a plan. He's not just rebuilding his empire, he's trying to clean up New York by funding hospitals, schools, and community programs with drug money. It's a twisted kind of morality. He's a killer, a kingpin, a visionary. And the cops? They want him gone. No arrests, no courtroom, just bullets. The film follows both sides of the war, Frank's ruthless climb back to power, and a trio of NYPD officers who've had enough of the system's failure. The line between good and evil, it blurs fast. Directed by Abel Ferrara, this is a gangster film that doesn't glamorize, it challenges. And yet, King of New York bombed. It made just $2.5 million against a budget of nearly $5 million. Too violent. Too strange. Critics didn't know what to make of it, and with no big studio push, it got buried. But look again, this is Lawrence Fishburne in one of his wildest roles. Wesley Snipes, Steve Buscemi, David Caruso, all firing on every cylinder. It's messy, electric, unapologetically bold. And beneath all the chaos is one brutal question. Can you be a savior when you're already a monster? That's what King of New York dares to ask. And decades later, people are finally listening. Max Klein survives a plane crash. He walks outside of the wreckage, calm, untouched, changed. But he didn't just survive. He believes he's invincible. In Fearless, Jeff Bridges plays a man disconnected from the world around him. His wife, his son, his business, none of it feels real anymore. The trauma didn't break him, it rewired him. While others grieve and search for answers, Max dives into something deeper. He walks through traffic, eats strawberries he's deathly allergic to. He reaches out to another survivor, Carla, played by Rosie Perez, a mother drowning in guilt after losing her baby. Together they don't heal. They crash into each other. And that's where the story lives. Not in the explosion, but in what's left behind. Directed by Peter Weir, Fearless isn't about surviving, it's about what survival costs. But it struggled. With a $20 million budget, it earned just $7 million in the US. Too quiet. Too philosophical. It asked questions most audiences weren't ready to face in 1993. What if surviving made you feel less human? What if safety felt like a lie? It didn't fit the mold of a tragedy or a comeback story. It was something else, something unshakable. Jeff Bridges delivers one of the most profound performances of his career. Subtle, fearless, unforgettable. Fearless may not have soared at the box office, but it's a film that lands right in the soul. Four men, one heist. Everything goes according to plan, until one of them pulls the trigger on his own crew. City of Industry follows Roy Egan, a retired thief pulled back in for one last score. But when betrayal leaves his brother dead, Roy doesn't run. He goes hunting. The film shifts fast, from sleek LA streets to the scorched edges of the California desert. It's a revenge story, but it refuses to follow the rules. Roy isn't a hero. He's not even trying to be. He's methodical, brutal, and entirely focused on one thing: making the traitor pay. No speeches, no wasted motion. This should have been a cult classic. But it wasn't. Despite solid reviews and a sharp, lean script, City of Industry made less than $1 million at the box office. Why? No big promotional push. No theatrical muscle behind it. Released in a crowded year of flashier crime films, it slipped through the cracks. But it's aged well, maybe too well. Quiet Rage feel even more relevant now, because this isn't about justice, it's about balance. And when someone tips the scale too far, Roy tips it back. City of Industry isn't loud, but it leaves a mark. A young boy, healthy, energetic, suddenly begins to fall. Slurred speech, loss of balance. Then the diagnosis: a rare degenerative brain disorder. No cure. No hope. But his parents, they refuse to accept that. In Lorenzo's Oil, Nick Nolte and Susan Sarandon play Augusto and Michaela O'Donnell, two ordinary people who become relentless researchers, medical outsiders navigating a world of specialists and skepticism. They're not doctors, but they dig through biochemistry journals, challenge experts, and eventually discover something astonishing: an experimental oil that slows the disease. A lifeline born from desperation. This film is not about miracles. It's about work. The grinding, obsessive, near-impossible pursuit of one more day, one more breakthrough. Written and directed by George Miller, yes. Mad Max, George Miller, it trades action for conviction, and it hits hard, but audiences didn't show up. Despite critical praise and Oscar nominations, Lorenzo's Oil earned only $7.2 million at the box office. Why? Too heavy, too real. No fantasy, no escape, just truth. And truth can be hard to sell. But this is a movie that matters, a story that teaches, fights, endures. Because sometimes the most heroic thing isn't a cape or a speech. It's refusing to give up when the world tells you to. Lorenzo's Oil might have slipped through the cracks, but it left a mark far bigger than its box office. It starts with a grocery store shift. Just another broke teenager trying to make rent. Then, a quick drug deal to cover rent money. One night, one decision. And it spirals fast. Go tells its story in 3 parts. Same night, 3 perspectives, all connected by a single bad idea. Rana sells fake ecstasy. Her co-workers' friends get dragged into an undercover sting. And in Vegas, a wild bachelor trip turns into a drug-fueled disaster. It's fast, chaotic. Criminals, raves, shootouts, strippers, but at the heart of it is a chain reaction. One choice leads to the next, and nobody gets out clean. The cast? Stacked. A young Katie Holmes, Timothy Olyphant, Sarah Polley, Taye Diggs, it feels like the late 90s boiling over. Directed by Doug Liman right after Swingers, this was supposed to be his big next move. And critically, it landed. It was marketed as a party movie, but Go was more than glow sticks and bass drops. It had bite, cynicism, heart, and it came out just weeks before The Matrix changed everything. It got lost in the noise. But watch it now, and it plays like a time capsule and a warning. Because Go is about momentum. And once you're in it, you don't get to stop, not until the night decides who walks away. Some movies fade, but the great ones? They stay with you, quietly waiting to be rediscovered. If any of these hit you in the gut, or reminded you what movies used to feel like, hit that subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me which hidden gem you're watching next. This is Vintage Verse, where forgotten films finally get their spotlight.